What is going on, everyone, and welcome back to the greatest podcast in the world, Shooting the Shit Uncensored. You know who this is. This is the truth, the dad bod god, the bald, the beard, and the beautiful Piers Austin. And tonight, man, we got a special one for all of you guys. I promise you that. We have an Australian combat sports legend. We got the Hammer, Mark Castagnini, in the building, and I'm excited to have Mark on. I got to meet Mark at a recent MuayThai event down in Canberra for Pretty Boy Promotions that he was commentating on. I was doing some backstage interviews and stuff like that. It was great to meet the legend in person, and I'm excited to have him on the podcast here tonight. But before we get into it, I need to take a quick pause for the cause to thank our sponsor for tonight's episode, and that is Sleefs.com. That is SLEEFS, Sleefs.com. If you or someone you know is an athlete, you need to go and check out Sleefs. They've got all your athletic gear and wear covered. They've got armbands, compression pants, compression shorts, headbands, boots, mouth guards, and they've even got those dirty boxes that you know the truth is always rocking, baby. Now, let me tell you something. I'm a busy guy. I work full time. I podcast my ass off. I go to the gym 6 days a week. I've got 3 crazy kids, 1 crazy wife. Just kidding. But I have to say this. These dirty boxes are the most comfortable boxes that I own, bar none. They stay dry, they stay fresh, and they've got funky designs on the front of them to keep Mrs. Austin giggling on what's on the front of the boxes, not what's inside them. So go and check out those dirty boxes at sleeves.com. Use that promo code MWAPOD to get a 10% discount on your final purchase. Also, wherever you're tuning in, make sure you hit that like, share, subscribe button. If you're tuning in on YouTube, make sure you click all of that, because we're bringing you some of the best conversations in combat sports, wrestling, entertainment, movies, music, you name it. We're bringing it to you right here. And if you're listening on a podcast platform, give us a 5-star review. It helps with our analytics, and it helps us bring more amazing conversations to more amazing people like yourselves. So get to clicking and tap in, because you know we're going to be dropping some amazing content like this conversation we're about to drop right now. Whew, I'm excited for tonight's conversation. I don't know about you guys, but this is going to be a treat. You've heard me talk enough shit to myself. Now it's time for me to drop that music video and bring in my guest, Mark the Hammer Castagnini, baby! What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the greatest podcast in the world, Shooting the Shit Uncensored. And I am here with one of my favorite people in the entire world. And I know I say that about every guest I have on my podcast, but this time I actually mean it. Mark the Hammer Castagnini, welcome to the show. Thank you for being here.
Hey, man. How are you? Thanks for having me on. I appreciate the opportunity.
Hey, man, I appreciate you giving up some of your time on this Friday evening to come and talk to me. I really appreciate it, Mark. You are definitely, as I said in the intro, a legend in Australian combat sports. I remember years ago, watching you on Fox Sports, calling some of the action that I was seeing on some of the Muay Thai shows that I was able to see back then. And it was just like, the way that you were able to like dissect fights, pick them apart, your fight knowledge, your fight, fight intelligence, I'd call it. I always found it so educational when I heard your commentary when it was breaking down fights, because that was back then when I didn't really know too much about the fight game. So it was like, that was kind of like a little bit of an education. Yeah. I heard you commentate.
Yeah, look, it's funny, because I promise you, 10 minutes ago, I was talking to one of the young guys in the gym here that wants to, is interested in helping me to do some socials and things like that. And we were running through the early days of broadcasting, and I'm talking, 95, 96, 97, kickboxing was in its infancy, or Muay Thai. And, I got the opportunity through a good friend of mine, Dave Hedgecock, who's one of the living legends of the fight game, one of the first Australians to fight for a world title in kickboxing, and he's boxed, he's done it all. But he had a relationship with a man called Bill Morty, who's an iconic promoter. Bill Morty is what No Limit is today. That's what Bill Morty used to be. He's promoting Jeff Fennick and all the greats, Costa Zoo and all that. So Morty had an exclusive deal with Fox Sports. Back then, the platform was actually Galaxy TV. And you got to remember, this is going back. There was no cable TV in Australia. It used to be Channel 7, 9, 10, ABC, and SBS, where you wanted to catch all the naughty stuff at night when you're a young lad. So
I remember that. And it was like when Galaxy came in, that was the first pay TV. I think it was like 90, 95, 96, maybe.
Yeah, early 90s. Yeah. So then I got a call and they said, man, there's an opportunity here to get our sport on mainstream media, mainstream TV, which is a dream come true. So I sort of championed that. We started to go out and about and do some, they sent the first show we did, there was one camera, one microphone, and they said, look, just give it a crack and we'll see how it goes. I went in and did a presentation of Fox Sports to try and get it more broad stream. And then I was basically their advisor for any events that were happening around the country. So they had no idea what was a good kickboxing show and what wasn't. So they entrusted me with the task of going out and scouting promoters and seeing who's putting on the big shows. And, from there we got the big shows on, and there was Evolution, Needs of Fury, all the big shows that we're getting on back in the day. And it was great working with the promoters and building the fighters. At the time, I was also running a publishing company. I was in corporate for, 20 odd years. And I ran magazines like, Blitz Martial Arts magazine, International Kickboxer was a magazine I started, MMA magazine. We also did stuff like triathlon, golf, soccer international, women's health and fitness. So I had a stable of, quite a lot of magazines that I was managing through the day as a GM. I was training at night. I was doing security. Man, I owned a nightclub at one stage in amongst all of it.
Jeez.
So I've never worked one job in my life. I've always had a lot, but sort of getting back to the early days of fight sports. And this is a conversation, as I said, I just had a while back. We were putting the Muay Thai on. The kickboxing was fair enough. Everyone knew what that was, boxing with kicks pretty much. So people were sort of following that. Although the old timers are like, oh, you can't fucking kick in a fight, man. That's not sport. That's shit, So we copped a lot of old mentality, which was fair enough. But I come from a martial art background, so kicking was second nature. It was the boxing that wasn't as proficient for my skill set. But I said, then Muay Thai started to get on, and then Fox Sports are like, what is going on with that stuff, man? Just guys grabbing each other and hugging and trying to knee each other. And it's like people had no appreciation for what it was. So I come up with the idea of doing fight tips. And you got to think, this was before Instagram, even Facebook, I think. This is going back to, what was before Facebook? I can't fucking remember now.
MySpace.
MySpace. So this is even now. So I'm like, what we'll do is when the shows are going on, in between the fights, we'll drop on a hammer fight tip, and I'll show how and why fighters clinch and talk about the scoring. And if you dig, if you do a deep dive on YouTube, you'll find some of those early hammer fight tips, and that's what it was all about. It was about educating the viewer because I wasn't about, Instagram's about showing people that are already probably doing it tips on training better. But back then it was a pure education process as to why things are being done and how it relates in the scoring process of the fight. So that was, I was one of the pioneers of film your technique and explain it. So Hammer's Fight Tips was born out of that, and that was in the early broadcasts on Fox Sports, and as a result, we built education and we built viewership, and the combat sports grew, and then I had obviously the Hammer Time Fight Show. That's 10 years ago now since I had that fight show, and I'm the only fighter in this country that's ever had his own weekly TV show on national TV, because it was on once a week on Fox Sports. I think it was on a Wednesday night, like at 8:30, half-hour show. And the funny story of that, it took me 8 years in pitching that show before Fox Sports actually give me the green light to do it. So I got 8 years of knockbacks of no, mate, no, we're not interested. And then one of
you kept pushing forward, like even after 8 years of being rejected.
I'd pitch it, if not once or twice a year more, to anyone that would listen, man. And then they had a change in management. A new manager came on, he gave me an opportunity. His name is Jared Frickberg. Eternally grateful for him having faith in me. So he was one of the heads of Fox acquisitions at the time. And I had a meeting with him, and I pitched the show. I said, man, I want it to be like, because you got to remember the footy show and the NRL show was huge back in the day. Yeah. So like, imagine if we could have, originally I pitched it as the fight show, TFS. So, and it was, I had my designs for graphics and gloves and this and that and the opener, like I had it all. And he sat down and he goes, yeah. He goes, yeah, but we'll fucking call it Hammer Time. He goes, oh, forget the fight show. I want to call it Hammer Time. It's got a better ring to it. I'm like, oh, dude, please don't, like, I don't want to be about me, I've got enough people hate me already, without throwing more in the mix. I said, I want it to be about the fight game. He's like, no, Hammer Time sounds better. It's got a ring to it, So that's how Hammer Time came about. He really pushed me to do it. Well, he pushed the name. I was pushing the concept, and then it kicked off. And I had a co-host, Andy Raymond, who's absolute champion. Andy's he was calling the rugby, and he's a professional broadcaster, man. I'm just a fighter turned, commentator turned whatever, So, I come up with the concept. I got one of my students, or one of my guys that train with me, Josh O'Neill, to help produce a show with me. And now Josh is a producer on Survivor. He does Married at First Sight. He's done Big Brother. So we produced this show and we put it out there, and it did well. And I'm proud that Josh kicked on with his TV production, skills and career. And I'm real proud of what we achieved. So that's why I want to bring it back, Piers. I want to bring it back, and I'm going to do it different though, because when you're on network TV, you can talk about certain things, and you got to be politically correct and all that. But this show, when I bring it back, I'm going to do it obviously online first, and then I'm going to pitch it to the networks again if I can get the viewership up, because it's all about numbers.
Absolutely,
it's going to be pretty out there, man. I'm going to talk about everything, even the transgender shit. To be honest with you, I'm old school. And when I hear about males trying to register and fight females in the ring, doesn't ring true to me unless they're doing a heap of, testing of their testosterone levels and their muscle mass densities and all of that. Because everyone should stick in their lane, man. There's female fighting. The girls have worked hard to get it to the level it is. And we don't want to turn into a circus now with dudes jumping in and starting to smack on women. That's just bullshit to me,
Yeah, well, remember the Brazilian MMA fighter Fallon Fox, the transgender MMA fighter. Yeah. Like I saw like a few of her fights, and it was like, man, like that was just like one of the opponents was like had got severe brain damage, had skull fractures, and you know what I mean. Like, look for me, like I'm the sort of belief of like let people be who they want to be. But like then to go in and then put someone else's health at risk, like I'm all for equality. Don't get me wrong, but when someone goes in and a grown man punching a woman, but then if the man is now transitioned to a woman, it's fair. Like it still doesn't sit right.
If people want to change their identities and fucking dress up as Batman and run around and do whatever they do, that's up to them, man. It's their business what they do.
Sure.
That if it affects their life only, that's cool. That's cool. Dress how you want, be who you want, do what you want. But if I'm going to say
physically hurting someone else. No.
I'm identifying as a woman. Look, I'm in my 50s now. If I say, oh, I'll do what's his name, Jenna, old mate, change to a woman,
Yeah.
and then I'll go, oh, he was a sprinter, yeah, and then there's all the hormone stuff and that, but he's still look at the dude, he's still not a svelte, female, thin boned female. His muscle density would still be somewhat there. He'd still be strong. Now, if let's just flip the script here. I'm getting up to 100 kilo, and I'm like, you know what? I'm chuck a dress on and say I'm a woman now. That's how my thinking's gone, because that's what he's done. He's into his 50s and he's gone, oh, I want to identify as a woman now. I want to be a woman. I'm going to get the sex change done. I'll still jump in the ring, and it put me against another 40 or 50-year-old woman. I'm punching them up, man. That's I'm still going to have somewhat of a build on me, and I'm still going to, even if my testosterone is totally depleted to zero, which, being honest with you, as an older male, that's happening to me anyway. But I'm still strong when I want to be. You know what I mean? Like,
but it also depends. I also think
variables in it all.
But I also think it depends on the skill level of that person as well.
Absolutely.
Like if that person gets in there and they're like not skilled at all, and they're getting in there with a female-born multiple-time world champion, then that female-born multiple world champion is going to fuck them up pretty quickly. You know what I mean?
Look, and that's happened in Thailand too. Where the beautiful boxer, fighting. That's a male transition to a female, but fights males. So that's the uniqueness of that situation. So look, it's a big topic, and we're sort of going off script here, but you said we're just talking about whatever, so I'm throwing it out there. I'm having a conversation. I'm having a conversation with you and the viewers as I would. It's open. I'm all about people doing whatever they want. So I certainly do that in my own way. But there's elements of things happening now in our world that sometimes have you scratching your head a bit, and going, man, it's there's things that's the change is good, but it's got to be moderated. You know what? When people started burning fossil fuels and pumping it into the air, and people were, when cigarettes were first come out, everyone's like, man, it's good for you. Doctors were smoking. People were doing, all of that was okay at one stage in this planet. Now
my
it's
grandfather,
like, hang on a minute, this is not so good for us.
My grandfather, when he came back from World War II, my mother told me this. He came back and he had PTSD. So he saw a doctor, was having all the nightmares, all that sort of shit. They subscribed to him. Cigarettes and whiskey.
calm him down. Well, now it's CBD oil, so we've transitioned a bit, So
now we've gone to cannabis. Yeah, back then it was like, oh, you can't spit the devil's lettuce. Now it's like,
but why I say I sort of bring it back to that is because at one point in society, things will be looked at as being, they should be able to be done. They're the right, this is what we're doing, and everyone gets on board with it. Until it's not so good anymore. And, we're seeing stuff now, the transgender issue is a big thing. How's it going to be? People still haven't worked out how it's going to be managed, for want of a better word. I know in Victoria, I've been tipped off, and I'm also the president of the Amateur Association here, that there's males that are wanting to register as females in the fight game. So it's happening. And it's like, that's okay, but how are we going to manage it so that no one does get hurt? So this is what I'm saying. So, that's why I draw the analogy of things that are sometimes, oh, this is okay. It's like AI, Everyone's like, yeah, AI. Well, this is something that's being launched, and a lot of people are using it now. Geez, I wish I had it when I was running magazines, because I'd be writing, feature stories in half an hour instead of 2 days. So, not only is it changing the face of publishing and marketing and everything else, and look at the Hollywood situation now. these things are brought into society, and the implications of integrating them into our society sometimes aren't thought through. You know, that's like everyone goes gung ho, and then they're like, "Oh, hang on a minute, maybe we fucked up here. Maybe we shouldn't do it like this way just yet. You know, pump the brakes." But sometimes it's a bit too late to pump the brakes. You know.
The AI shit is so crazy. Like, I actually was like flipping through, and I saw something like it was a Joe Rogan interview with, like, I don't know who it was. It was like, I think it was Donald Trump. And I was like, oh shit, this would be interesting. And then I click on it, and then it was like, it had this thing saying, this is an AI recorded podcast. This isn't really Joe Rogan. And it was like, Joe Rogan's voice was saying all this. This isn't really Joe Rogan. And I'm like I'm sitting there going like, you know what I mean? Like, I'm paying attention to it going, like, that's his. Oh, no, I guess it's not his, like, but it just sounded like someone may have just like done a slight effect on the audio to his voice. I'm like, that the conversation, like 10 minutes of it, I'm like, this is wild.
So you got to think, you know, technology and evolution of technology, everything starts really raw and then it's fine tuned. I mean, look at the cars we drive now, and look at the cars of, you know, the 50s. You know, look how evolution of technology refines things and makes them slicker, faster, you know, more user-friendly, et cetera, et cetera. This is AI, you know, like we're looking at the rawest version of it being put out there now. Imagine it in 10 years' time. Imagine how you're going to know what's real and what's not, you know, and that's, you know, I've seen a thing on socials about an AI profile on Instagram of this, someone's created something of a female profile on Instagram that's gone absolutely bananas. And I'm like, man, you know what? I'm gonna try and do an AI OnlyFans and just like, you know, put together the most desirable female ever and chuck together some AI content and just think you'll make money, and it's not even a real female, you know. So, you know, people are just using this and talking to my computer networking guys, man, with AI now, if you've got a four-digit password, it can be worked out using AI in a matter of seconds. So
that's some scary.
You know,
that technology.
And they're like, man, you know, we're putting all of the, you know, that's, you know, hacking and you know, internet fraud and all of that. That's going to be the new security priority of the future, because don't worry about people robbing people on the street. You know, obviously that's always going to be there. But it's the online theft and online fraud. Now chuck into that AI. Chuck in that AI can work out people that have got the old passwords 1, 2, 3, 4, or their their birth year, 1975 or whatever it is. Man, if someone wants to hack and they've got an AI program, they'll work out your passcode or your password in literally seconds. And that's like, well, you got to have two-factor authentication and stuff now, to make it a little bit more difficult.
Well, they've even had over the years like fake websites. I remember a couple of years ago, I wanted to buy a Weber barbecue, the round, the old school charcoal ones, and I wanted to buy one of them. And I was like looking around, they're all like $500-600, and then I just came across this Australian website .com.au at the end of it, and I was like, oh, they're selling them for I think $300. I'm going, oh, this is beauty. I'll grab 2 of them.
Yeah.
So fair enough. I go in there. I ordered 2 of them, and I've got email confirmations, everything like this, online receipts, and then like they even email me saying, "Hey, there's been a delay with the delivery, but blah blah blah." And there was emails back and forth for a couple of weeks, and then it was like dead nothing. And then I was like, huh. And then it was like the phone number you couldn't reach them at. I end up I have a security background, so I did a bit of research, and I tracked down the ABN number to the suburb of where the person who owned the ABN number to the person's address and phone number. And I called up the guy, and I just was like, and this guy answered his phone, and he owned a similar business to that, and he had told me they stole his ABN number and were using his ABN number with this fake business with a similar name to it. Because I rang him up abusing, going, "You prick, I've got your address." And he's like, "Mate, no." Yes, you're the 10th call I've gotten today, brother. Please, like, he was just like, but yeah,
Yeah.
he was in tears. This bloke, he's going, mate, like,
Oh
fuck you.
man,
Yeah,
it'll ruin you. It ruins you, man. I mean, I've been ripped too. Like, you know, on Insta, you know, seen one of those, you know, roses in the glass thing look mad for Valentine's Day. Well, I'm getting some
yeah.
of that shit. You know, it's a pretty good price. I forgot to buy a present. Bang, bang. It'll be here, no problem. Gone, disappeared. I've never seen the flower, never seen the money. I hope whoever did it
Exactly.
is enjoying my fucking $50 or whatever it was. So, you know, but
Oh,
then, I mean, you know, I'm pissed about it, but there's a $50 lesson for me. I'll take it. I'll look at it and go, you know what? They got me, but it's also educated me at the same time. I'm pissed about losing my money, but, you know, I'd rather it be $50 than, you know, 5,000. So, you know, try and find the learning process out of it all, you know. So yeah.
yeah, man. No, yeah. Luckily, I made a claim with my bank and I was able to sort it out. But like, yeah, I remember I was seeing red at the time, and like, I walked in from that conversation. My wife goes, "Did you threaten the guy?" And I was like, "Well, no, I didn't get that far into it." And I was like, and I said, "Well," she's like, "Why? What happened?" I said, "Well, when a grown man starts crying, saying no, please."
You got to realize is, you know, he's a victim of it too, man. You know, so as I
Yeah,
said,
yeah,
all
yeah.
of this stuff is, you know, getting back on topic for the fight game.
Mm.
You know, I've always been very protective of you know, of fighters and their interests, and you know, try to do the right thing in every possible way from the instructing of the training of fighters. You know, I've been part of the combat sports brain study here in Melbourne. You know, where they, you know, they're looking at the impacts of concussion and so forth, which is a big thing in our world. I've gone in as a guinea pig and you know, had all the tests done and had the dye injected into me and had all the, you know, the scans, the nuclear medicine scans and all that. Because as a former fighter and you know, bouncer and all of that, you know, I think back to when I was fighting, man, I'd box or I'd have a fight, and if I was on early, I'd say to my boss, "Oh, I think I'm early on in the card. I'll be at work, you know, 10, 11 o'clock." So I'd have a fight in the ring, and I'd shower up, and I'd go straight to a club and stand on the door, or stand in the club and potentially have another couple of fights that night. Um, and
Jeez,
looking back now, so
that's old school.
I've done the worst for my health, the worst possible scenarios. So if I was concussed during the fight, you know, you're not supposed to have any visual stimulation, and there's a care plan that runs after you're concussed. And what I was doing, going to a nightclub with loud music and high stimuli, it's probably the worst thing you could have done. So
Oh,
who knows how, you know, who knows how that's going to affect me later in life. But at the time, we didn't know anything, man. I needed money, you know, fighting. I just, you know, it was what I did. And security was what I did. And mind you, I worked through the day as well. So I'd have a day job. I'd fight, you know, I'd do security at night. And, you know, I've always worked my ass off to get what I've got. Um, and I think back and I'm like, I don't. I want my guys to learn from my mistakes, not for me to emulate them and you know, oh, you'll be right. You know what? If my guys have hard sparring, I don't like it because they're the ones getting hit, but I feel it, you know. Um,
yeah.
so I try and have some sort of duty of care for my team. At the same time, you're fighting. You know, you're in there, and the other person's trying to punch you, trying to punch them. Let's not sugarcoat it. You know, there's too much bullshit on social media now, and there's too many, you know, Instagram fighters. So, you know, you've got to be prepared for the fight. You've got to be mentally prepared, physically conditioned, and getting hit and, you know, and knocked out is a possibility for all of us when we fight. So, yeah, you know, a lot of it goes back to what we were talking about before, man. Old school. A lot of things were being done that people didn't realise the ramifications of, and then you know, look at all the stuff now with AFL and NRL and, you know, boxing and stuff. You know what was happening back then that was quite acceptable, and everyone sort of
Yeah.
thought, oh, well, that's just the way it is. It's our choice. We want to fight. It's our choice. If we get knocked out and we want to fight again 2 hours later, don't try and stop us because it's our choice. But that's fine, but it may not be the smartest thing to do, and that can, you know, you've got to take that argument into anything that's a new innovation or anything that potentially, you know, can question, society will question. And we're in that position with so many things at the moment in our life. You know, so yeah, I'm all about trying to think it through, you know.
Well, I think also sometimes people that are fighters, people that are like fighters are people of a competitive nature, and any person of a competitive nature, a lot of the time needs someone to save that person from themselves, essentially. Because, you know, I mean, once a person with that nature, even when they're hurt, even when they're injured, even when they're like, you know what, like any other person who isn't on that level of a competitor as that person who's hurt wouldn't understand it, would just go, oh yeah, I'll just sit at home, I won't train today. That person will just keep pushing because they think if they miss one day of training, if they do not take this fight, then they're not at, you know what I mean? Like, they need someone to pull them in sometimes, man.
I'm a big one on now. You know, I got guys that will train to the point of breaking their body down. So I always say, you know, overtraining is as bad as undertraining. You got to have that. You got to find that right point. And you know what? As a young trainer many years ago, I was guilty of overtraining my fighters. You know, we just like, you know, you got to do more. You got to do more. You got to do more. But at the same time, I looked at injuries. I looked at, you know, what was happening with these guys. And I'm like, I need to adjust my thinking and not just be stubborn and just follow a process that perhaps is not the best. So as a trainer, you know what, as a human being, you should always be learning. You should always, you know, just because you know something doesn't mean you know something. You know, you have to still question your beliefs, and you still have to question your thought process. You're not always right. And if there's a subjective argument, you know, or if there's that little voice in your head that goes, hang on a minute, maybe you've got to look at this a little bit closer, you got to follow that. And that's what I did with my team, you know. So, you know, my fighters, the ones that compete, they're not lazy by nature anyway. They're the other way. So if I jump on the pads with them or wrestle with them or whatever, and I feel that they don't have the usual strength or the usual sharpness, I'm like, how you feeling today, dude? You know, oh, a little bit tired. Oh, I feel like a bit of. I'm like, that's it. We're pulling pins here, because to run them into the ground further is not going to be beneficial. Because, as I said, there's some people that will look for excuses, and that comes back to a coach understanding his fighter's mindset, or you know, his team's, you know, mindset. There's people that'll look for the easy way, and then there's people that'll have a little bit of insecurity and overtrain because they think, I'm not good enough, so I've got to do more, It's like, no, pull up. You are good enough. You're doing fine. Let's just work to the team plan. You know, you're on the money. So there's fighters that will be overconfident, and then there's fighters that will be underconfident. And as a coach, you have to find that sweet spot. And as you said, sometimes save people from themselves. You know, there's a kid in Thailand now in hospital that is, you know, he's basically, you know, in the vegetative state, you know, it's, you know, some people are saying, you know, he recognizes them and this, that, anyway. So it's a long and very sad story, but the fight that he was in, he shouldn't have probably competed in, but he was too tough for his own good. Fought a Thai, kept coming forward. Thai kept smashing him. He kept coming to the point where, you know, people that were there said that the fighter, the Thai that was fighting him was looking at the referee going, you know, pull it up, and then like keep going. So he just kept smashing him. He got out of the ring and collapsed, and been in hospital ever since. So that's the reality of our world as well. You know, people see stuff online, this, that, but understand this, you know, you only have one body. So, you know, you got to sort of look after it. And, you know, I've been in martial arts, you know, for over 30 years. I've done a lot of silly things, and I will never pass that down to get anyone else to do. I learn from it. I want, you know, one of my favorite sayings is, a smart man learns from his mistakes. A smarter man learns from the mistakes of others. So if you don't have to make that mistake, you know what I mean, don't do it. And that's sort of how I, you know, try and have that sort of an attitude with my team. And fighting is only one part of martial arts. You know, you have to take martial arts as a lifestyle, not just a glorified short-term part of your life. And if someone wants that, then I'm not. That's not what I'm about, you know.
Well, I think as well, like some people get into it and don't really understand the dedication to martial arts or any form of combat sport, because the difference between a combat sport and going and playing soccer is you can't go in there and I mean, you can get seriously fucking hurt. You know what I mean? Fighting.
Well,
Like,
yeah,
just explain what happened with that young kid. It's like,
yeah.
if you're going to go and do this, you can't do Muay Thai, you can't do MMA, you can't do boxing, you can't do those kind of sports and
Look,
go and
yeah,
fight without
yeah,
putting everything into it. It's I mean, like
yeah,
I've always said, to be an athlete in those industries, you have to be selfish in the sense that
yeah.
you
We
have
look.
first all
There's
the time.
you got it. Let me just clarify something first, to any of the young guys out there watching this. It's not a sport; it's a fight, in
Mm,
essence. You know, if martial arts as an esoteric, martial art, you train. Your biggest opponent is yourself when you're a martial artist, and every day you step on the mat or you step in, you go to the ring. You want to be better. That's what you should be training for. Now, if you want to challenge yourself, give yourself the ultimate challenge of fighting someone not on the street, but fighting someone. This is my thing. I didn't want to fight. I was working in the clubs, and I was paid to do what I had to do back in the day. Um, but I wanted to test against someone that wasn't drunk, someone that wasn't smaller than me, someone that
mm,
wasn't not skilled. I'm like, you know what? If I'm any good, I want to step in against someone that's trained just as hard as me, just as big as me, just as strong as me, and see how we go. Um, you know, and always, in training, I wanted to train with people better than me, not people I could beat on at the gym. Like I had some
100%.
some I had some hell sessions at the gym because I'd be bashed some days, when I rolled up. But it's like that's how I leveled up at the same time through training. But
Mm,
where I'm going with this is when I fought, man, I didn't want to be friends with my opponent. I got enough fucking friends. I don't want to be friends with the guy that's trying to punch my head off my shoulders. My mentality was different. I got in the ring and I'm like, I don't want to be there. I didn't want to know the person. It's not, it was not personal, but you're standing across the ring from me. You want to beat
100%.
me. You want to humble me. You want to knock me out in front of my friends and family. That's not, I don't want to be your friend, man. We're competitors.
Yeah.
We're warriors. We fight each other. If I knock you down, I'm not going to stomp you. Like I've had fights on the street, where I've had my throat stomped. So, it's a totally different thing. People get shit confused. Don't get it mixed up. There's fighters that are good technical ring fighters, and then there's fighters on the street that have never had a competitive fight in their life, and they're like, man, I want to fight some of those dudes either. So
Mm,
sport is one thing, competition is one thing, reality is another thing. But going back to the competitive nature of fighting, you be respectful. That's one thing. Across the line, humiliate someone or insult them. But at the same time, you're there to beat the other person up. Let's
yeah.
the essence of
That's
fighting is you get in a ring, get in a cage, and you're going to punch that person into submission. And you know what? Potentially you can kill them. So you prepared for that. You prepared to punch someone in the face and knock them down, and them to have a lifelong injury. Are you prepared for that before you get in the ring and start, throwing down? Because if you're not, maybe the person across from you will be. So
yeah.
that's it. That's how I think of shit, man. I think of
Kill or
things a
be
little bit
killed.
different
Kill or be
than,
killed.
but that's old school. These days maybe people go, "Oh my god, you can't say that." Well, I did, so bad luck. But you know, it's still fighting. It's
Yeah.
of a competitive nature in the ring. At the same time, as I said, don't get it twisted, man. In the ring, you have a judge, you have referees, you have safety rules, and all of that. Even in MMA, people are like, oh, MMA, yeah, it's all right, but you see what happens when a guy gets gouged in the eye. Sort of
Mm,
stops a bit, yeah.
yeah.
So if I'm in a fight, I'm sticking my finger or my thumb in old mate's eye socket up to that second knuckle, popping it, grab the ear like it's a
Mm,
handle, and drive your thumb into their eyeball. That's the difference between being in the ring and being on the street. In a cage in the ring, you abide by rules, and sure, people will have a higher skill level, so I might get armbarred before that happens. So
mm,
that's when skill comes into it. But if you have skill and you have a nasty streak, has a double negative. You understand? So And that's
100%.
with fighting. I think if you want to be successful, in essence, any of the world class fighters, they they carry themselves as gentlemen. They carry themselves as professionals. They
Yep.
carry themselves as business people. But in essence, in core, in their heart here, man, they're warriors, and they're in there to do
100%.
damage. And you know what? If they hurt someone, they hurt someone. That's just part of the deal because they know it's either the other person or it's them. So
Yeah.
reality check for people that, jump around, and think they want to hop in. Just be ready mentally, physically. Don't overtrain, don't undertrain. And more than ever, have good people around you, that are going to look out for you. So
Well, that's 100%. And like it's interesting how you said you were doing the bouncing thing. You were, and you wanted to get in there and test yourself, because it's like I always think that there's and even training and finding a gym where you're not the best person in the gym. It's almost, and I've always said this, it's like you never want to be the person who's the smartest person in the room, because you're never learning anything. You know what I mean? So
always have mentors, and yeah.
100%. Like, there's one thing about being the toughest guy at the barbecue, and there's another thing actually being the toughest guy, who can go in there and beat the fuck out of someone who's a trained and skilled fighter as well. You know what I mean? Like, there's different levels.
And that's where go to me. I've had obviously the martial arts fighting, the boxing, kickboxing, full contact karate, bare knuckle fight, karate. I've done everything through the years. I've never competed in MMA. I've trained a little bit in MMA, so I've dabbled in that. I appreciate and respect all of it. But you know what? I'll tell you something. The toughest fights I've had have been, there's some tough fights in the ring. Absolutely. Respect to the guys that smashed my nose from one side of my face to the other, but at the same time, I've had altercations, for want of a better word, with people, out and about. And man, no, they're not fighters, but as I said, they have a streak in them that when it's brought out, either through alcohol, potentially drugs,
Yeah.
you're dealing with a different animal, man. You're dealing with and that's where people go, oh, I could do a jab cross, this, that. Someone runs at you off their head on ice. Not jab cross enough, man. They're trying to bite your nose off your face, So there's
Bro,
different physical conflict has many different levels and many different avenues of where it goes, and you've got to sort of understand the psychology of confrontation, which I sort of look at that as well in all aspects.
yeah, I mean, I also have a background in working in security, man, and I always found it so interesting that when people would get drunk, like these people, like that were not skilled at fighting at all, but they would have these massive fucking balls, and it's like
and
they
it's
would and they want to fight the biggest fucking bounce, like, and like I'm fight, how I'm a short motherfucker, bro. So like I'm 5'6", so for a lot of times they're trying to call out the bigger guys, and I've had bigger guys go, "Why are they trying to call out me and not you? You're the easier target." I said, because then if I knock them out in front of their mates, then they got knocked out by the little guy.
That's true. That's true.
At least you got the balls to call you out, so they look
Well,
like
I used to have, I work with some, big islanders and some big boys, and
yeah.
invariably you're standing on the door, and I'd always I was, 6 foot plus, tall, skinny kid, when I was younger. I didn't look threatening at all. I looked like a total, the wind would blow me over, and then guys would go, "You fucking come out here," and I'm like, "Oh, well, all right, if you want," and it was the confidence of, man, I was fighting in the gym every night anyway, so going
Yeah.
out and having a crack against someone was not a problem to me. And some of the bigger guys like, "Oh, dude, you don't do that." yeah, he's a little bit crazy, so you stay away from him. So, but you can't judge a book by its cover. You can't
100%.
judge anyone. Don't sometimes the scariest looking guys are the ones that fall the easiest, and the ones that look, don't look threatening at all. Like, stocky tradies, they don't look hard. They look like nice blokes. Get a couple of beers into them, and different people. I've had guys come to clubs day in, day out, loveliest blokes. Get 2 beers in them, and they, frontal lobe kicks in. They get angry. They got childhood issues. They want to kill everybody, man. There's people that drink and we all know these guys. There's people
Yeah,
that'll
yeah,
drink
yeah.
and be a happy drunk. I'm a happy drunk, man. I have a couple of drinks. I'm
Same,
a
the
clown,
same.
you know.
Same
You
here.
know,
I
but
get happy,
there's
want to kebab, then want to go home and sleep.
so, but then there's I've seen people come in and they'll have a couple of drinks, and man, they just change. You just see that change, slowly but surely happen, and every drink is a tightening of the notch, and you just see them, just look more and more angry the more and more they drink. So
Well, the interesting
being
thing there, Mark, is like, I got told this thing. You know why they call spirits spirits? Like, you whiskey, you scotch, you vodka. You know why they
yeah,
call it spirits?
tell me.
Because like the old wives' tale of this story is because if you drink this, it brings the evil spirits out of you.
Well,
Like,
that's I've seen it. I've
And my
seen it.
grandmother
I've
told
seen.
me that. Like, yeah, I've seen it. My grandmother told me that one. But it's interesting
Yeah.
though, like, because like there's certain things like there's certain drinks that do things to certain people. Like,
Yeah, that's
you know what I
true.
mean? Like
That's
I
true.
drink Jaeger, and if like
Yeah.
whenever I drink a lot of Jägermeister, man, I just become like the worst drug anyway. I'll just be like, hey, what's up? I'm just like hugging everybody. You know what I mean? Whereas like,
As I say, there's a subtle plug
I'm
for a
happy,
Jaeger sponsorship.
yeah. But,
Subtle
hey, if
plug
I'm
for a
just
Jaeger
drinking,
sponsorship.
hey, maybe, man. But if I'm drinking beer, I'll sit here and just have a good time and laugh and stuff.
Yeah.
But as soon as the Jaeger gets in, I'm like, oh man, come here, let's have a hug, everybody. Let's go, baby. I'm that
I
kind of
love it.
guy,
Yeah,
But
look, I think it is what it is,
yeah,
and talking to I've spoken to some counselors and psychologists about it, and they go, some people when you drink, it's all frontal lobe, emotional, reactions that are invoked, and for
yeah,
some people that brings a lot of trauma. It brings up a lot of childhood trauma, perhaps, or trauma from past life experiences, and that comes out, which is generally suppressed when they're until they have the substance that brings that out. So that's why some people react differently, I think, when they drink. But we sort of digress. It is what it is. The fight game has been my life. I love it. All these years later, I still roll up to a show and I'm excited to commentate. I still come to the gym. I'm at the gym now. I hold pads. I teach classes. I love teaching beginners, for
yeah,
pro fighters, this, that. I get it with the pro fighters. Man, I'm in there strategizing and doing all that. And I've got fighters that are top 10 world ranked and all of that. It's all good. But I really get the most pride and I get the most, satisfaction in someone that comes in, they're intimidated when they come in, it's shy to start the class. And then after an hour, you just see them change and you see them just be empowered and energized by their training. And they've learned a couple of new things and they've met some new people, and it's a good, positive environment. Man, that's what makes me happy these days. That's where I get my energy from in staying in the martial arts as well, and the fight game.
yeah. Seeing those people, come in and just really sort of grasp it as well. Because one of the things, I remember when I first started training, Muay Thai and stuff, was I found it so frustrating that I couldn't get the footwork right. Like it took me probably about 3 months to get the basics down of just like the right stance. And it was like, and I could never get it right. And even after 3 months, to even the point now where I don't train kickboxing pretty much at all due to like family commitments and stuff. But anytime I work out and there's a bag there, I'm always going there practicing my stance, the footwork, and because it's like that's a skill. It took me so long to learn. I
It's
never want
patience,
to.
man.
I never want to lose it. Yeah.
It's all those little things, I've got a graded system where I test all my students. They're tested, and people are like, oh, you can't do this, that in fight sports. Well, you know what I do, and it works, and it's the way that I give back to my students. I do line work because when I've got 30 people in the class, if they're all moving around shadow boxing, how the hell can I correct them? You can't. It's impossible. And anyone tells me they can, they're lying, and they'll challenge that. So if I've got 30 people and I've got 3 rows of 10, and I'm standing in the right position, I can see everyone and I can critique everyone. So I'm like, Jimmy, hold your hands up. Robert, roll your hip. Sarah, roll your shoulder, center line, hit to the center line. You know, I back myself on how I've structured my teaching, and it's not my idea because it's been centuries of martial arts that have brought it. Always, you look at Chinese martial arts, you look at Japanese martial arts, you know, you look at Korean martial arts, line work, you know, discipline. If you can throw a full power head kick in the air with good technique and power and not lose your balance, that's what you want to be able to do. Why? Because watch a fight. How many kicks and punches land clean? How many? Not many. Probably 80% are either miss or they're blocked. So what I train my people for is for the 80%, not the 20%. Because if you hit them, you hit them. Cool. But what are you going to do if you throw a full power head kick and you end up falling over like a muppet? It's embarrassing. You know, and that happens a lot on the street. You know, guys will come out and you know, watch any YouTube street fight clip. Guys running at each other, you know, bolo right hand all day. You know it's going to happen. Look at their body language. They throw the punch, they fucking fall over. They look stupid. They get stomped after. So you know, in any discipline, you have to train for the vast percentage of what is going to happen in the fight. You know, and take the fight out of your opponent's comfort zone. So if they're a kicker, you box. If they're a boxer, you kick. You got to be able to change your strategy, and you have to be able to do that with skill, class, and balance, man. You know, like
100%, bro. 100%.
You know, so yeah, that's why I do my teaching is so structured, and that's why I really enjoy setting up those foundations with the beginners, because, you know, they just love the knowledge, and they challenge themselves, and it becomes a personal thing to get it right. You know, like you said, you know, it's your own personal little challenge that you engage yourself in. That's what it's about. It's not about beating anyone up. It's about trying to be the best version of you and going, hey, you know, when I move and when I throw kicks and punches and knees and elbows, look at that. That looks beautiful. That looks like movie shit.
Yeah.
You want to have those. You want to have that look, and you want to have the effectiveness together. You know.
But mind you, I'd probably go and train with you, and you go, man, your technique's shit. You haven't done this in years, you stupid prick.
You know, I look at myself sometimes. I look at myself sometimes like, oh, I don't do that, dude. You know, so, you know, I'm my biggest critic too. You know, like, but the one thing I'll say to any young fighter is, I fought for many years, and I you know, had one loss only in all that time, and the how I won my fights was my opponents just got tired from hitting me, man. You know, I was just mentally tough. I'm like, I just seen them break. I just seen them just seen them go, and I'm like, you know, you're not taking me out. And when someone hits you with a best shot, and then you go, oh shit, he's still there. You see it, and they hit you again, and you're like, yeah, that's all right. You know, the Thais do it. If you watch Thai fighting, they get hit with a good shot and they smile. You know, they play that psychological game because they want to take your mind before they take your body. You know, they take their confidence.
And having someone smile at you after you've just cracked them as hard as you can in the fucking mouth, and they're just like,
I wasn't so much smiling. I was just like a zombie, just walking towards them. Just, you know, I just kept going until I overwhelmed them, just from sheer work rate and determination. But my skills when I was fighting, I say, to be honest with you, my skills are better now than when I was fighting. I got a better understanding of striking and balance and technique and coordination. You know, I was a fighter, a raw fighter when I was fighting. Wasn't the prettiest, just got the job done, just like a lot of my old girlfriends. So, just went out and I was a fight. It was just, you know, I didn't do it for any reason. You know, I didn't do it for Instagram likes or to get pictures in the ring after. I just wanted to fight because it was my ultimate test against someone that was as well equipped as me, which is always got to be the goal.
Oh, 100%, man. But man, we are going to wrap it up here right now, man, because like I feel like I honestly like Hammer, I'd love to get you back on because I think that this conversation could probably go on for another 2 hours or so. If you'd be down to do a part two, I would love to have you back on because I've thoroughly enjoyed this conversation. This is like meeting, I'm a big fan of your work, so it's been an honor to have you on. But where can everyone find Hammer's Gym? Where can they follow you on socials?
Yeah, look, if you just check out the socials, mostly I'm on Instagram these days. I've got people telling me to do TikTok, but I don't know, the whole, when I see TikTok, I just see people doing silly dances. So I've got an image stuck in my head, but Instagram, Mark Hammer Castagnini, Hammer's Gym. If you Google it, it'll come up for sure. Hammer's Gym in Melbourne. And of course the Hammer Time Fight Show I'm bringing back soon. Hopefully we'll get production sorted by, September, October. And have some shows out by then, talking to, some people in the biz, like your good self. And, I speak from the heart. So if anyone's listening to what I've said and you got a little bit offended or something, I apologize that maybe my thoughts don't align with yours, but that's the world. We've all got opinions. Doesn't mean we've got to hate each other. It just means that we've got to, be open-minded and express what is good and what is not, and learn from each other always, man. That's all. That's just how it is. Keep learning, no matter what your age.
100%, man. Better to be green and growing than ripe than rotting, as my dad always says.
I love that. I love that. That's a beautiful one.
You can use it. You can use it. But guys, this has been the greatest podcast in the world, Shooting the Shit Uncensored. I am your host, The Truth, Piers Austin, and I have had the absolute pleasure of sitting down with one of my favorite people in the entire world. And I say that about every guest, but this time I actually mean it. Mark the Hammer Castagnini, thank you for your time. Guys, make sure you hit that subscribe button. We'll see you again very soon. Take care. All the best. Peace.